very beautiful temple. Nice to see. Now vicino is growing up with Radhika Prabhu. He's a very nice man.
Very steady. That's steadiness is important. It's very steady.
Also, Radhika Prabhu slowly is growing up. And my desire is to start a community in Ticino. And I'm looking for a place of.
You like to how to develop?
Yeah.
Oh, that's very good.
Because I am 62, so it's the time to change my. I have a restaurant, so I'm slowly leaving it, and so
So you more free.
more inside, more free, and
Preaching
more
activities.
within.
Well, that's wonderful. We need to go to teaching. So I'm looking forward to touch with you.
I hope to be putting some cream or something.
Yeah, it's different things that we love.
Did you ask him about it?
Was ich gerade schade für ist nicht in einem Haus, sondern auf das Auto.
I think I'm already fit to sit there for now.
Okay, I will do it.
Cheers, auseinander.
Huh?
Cheers, auseinander.
I see it.
It's okay, I'll do it.
Yeah, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I'm enjoying it.
Kukula, I bring you danga.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, this.
You know which verse?
There it's written
No,
163 was the last. This was also in this.
Okay, so we do 164.
Probably.
Okay. Well, then we can sing Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu. Shane, can you please distribute the song to everybody?
Yes.
I will have it page number, you give everybody the book, and then we discuss.
English or Italiano?
Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai Shri Shri Gaurnathai ki Jai. So we are leading Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya Karmore, page 40 of the song book. Shane, could you please take the mic there? Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Daya karo more.
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 Toma bina ke dayalu jagat samsare.
Toma bina ke dayalu jagatam samsare.
Patita pavana hetu Tavaya avatara.
Patita pavana
कृपा बाले पाय चैतन्य स्वरूप सनातन रूप रघुनाथ स्वरूप सनातन रूप रघुनाथ भक्त जुग श्री जीव प्रभु लोकनाथ श्री जीव दया करो श्री आचार्य प्रभु श्रीनिवास रामचंद्र संग मांगे नरोत्तम दास रामचंद्र संग मांगे नरोत्तम दास Hare Vishnupat Paramhamsa Paribhratkacharya Ashtotar Satar Shishimad Abhay Charanaravindra Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki ISKCON BBT Founder Charya Jagat Guru Srila Prabhupada ki Grantharaj Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki Vrinda Devi Tulasi Maharani ki Jai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari. All glories to the assembled devotees, Hare Krishna. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Srila Prabhupada ki Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to our Sunday special Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita discussion. So, before we start with reciting the verse, we just invoke the blessings of the Panchatattva. Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Jaya Shri Chaitanya Jaya Nityananda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda
Jaya Advaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhakta Vrinda.
So we are reading from Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela. The chapter is entitled The Process of Devotional Service. And we are reading from chapter 22, Madhya Leela, verse 164 until verse 165. Just two verses. So we have verse 164 on the board. However, 164 doesn't have a purport and 165 has a purport. So we can chant 164 together and 165 I would recite alone. Mata Kare Yeba Raganuga Bhakti Krishnera Charane Tara Uppajaya Priti Ei Mata Kare Jeva Raganuga Bhakti
Ei Mata Kare Jeva Raganuga Bhakti
Krishnera Charane Tara Upajaya Priti.
Krishnera Charane Tara Upajaya Priti.
No, actually it is, according to the letter it is Tanra, but then the pronunciation in Bengali is Tar. It's like you have a nasal so, but everyone can recite Tanra. Yeah, but it's just my roots don't allow me to say Tanra, sorry. Ei Mata Kare Jeba Raganuga Bhakti
Ei Mata Kare Jeba Raganuga Bhakti
Krishnera Charane Tara Upajaya Priti
Krishnera Charane Tara Upajaya Priti
Ei Mata Kare Jeba Raganuga Bhakti
Ei Mata Kare Jeba Raganuga Bhakti
Krishnera Charane Tara Upajaya Priti.
Krishnera Charane Tara Upajaya Priti.
Please chant.
Ei Mata Kare Jeva Raganuga Bhakti
Ei Mata Kare Jeva Raganuga Bhakti
Krishnera Charane Tara Upajaya Priti
Krishnera Charane Tara Upajaya Priti Ei Mata Kare Jeva Raganuga Bhakti
Ei Mata Kare Jeva
Krishnera charane tara upajaya priti.
Krishnera charane tara upajaya priti.
Ei mata kareye bharaganuga bhakti.
Ei mata kareye bharaganuga bhakti.
Krishnera charane tara upajaya priti.
Krishnera charane tara upajaya priti.
Mataji's.
Hey Mata Kare Bharaganuga Bhakti.
Hey Mata Kare Bharaganuga Bhakti.
Krishnera Charane Tandra Upajaya Priti.
Krishnera charane tara upajaya priti.
Hey Mata Kare Bharaganuga Bhakti.
Hey Mata Kare Bharaganuga Bhakti.
Krishnera Charane Tandra Upajaya Priti.
Krishnera charane tara upajaya priti.
Thank you. Ei Mata.
Hey Mata.
In this way.
In this way.
Kare.
Kare.
Executes.
Executes.
Yeba.
Eva.
Anyone who.
Anyone who.
Raganuga Bhakti.
Raganuga Bhakti.
Spontaneous devotional service to Krishna.
Spontaneous devotional service to Krishna.
Krishnera Charane.
Krishnera charane.
For the lotus feet of Krishna.
For the lotus feet of Krishna.
Tara.
Tara.
His.
His.
Upajaya.
Upajaya.
Awakens.
Awakens.
Priti.
Priti.
Affection.
Affection.
Translation by His Divine Grace Abhacharana Ravinda Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki.
Yeah.
So the translation reads as follows. If one engages in spontaneous loving service to the Lord, his affection for the lotus feet of Krishna gradually increases. So the following verse with the purport, text 165. Priti ankure rati bhavahai duinam yaha haite vashahana Shri Bhagavan. Translation reads as follows. In the seed of affection there is attachment which goes by two names, Rati and Bhava. The Supreme Personality of Godhead comes under the control of such attachment. Purport. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments on this verse. Externally, a devotee performs all the items of devotional service in 9 different ways, beginning with Shravana and Kirtana. And within his mind, he always thinks of his eternal relationship with Krishna and follows in the footsteps of the devotees of Vrindavan. If one engages himself in the service of Radha and Krishna in this way, he can transcend the regulative principles enjoined in the Shastras and through his spiritual master fully engage in rendering spontaneous love to Krishna. In this way, he attains affection at the lotus feet of Krishna. Krishna actually comes under the control of such spontaneous feelings, and ultimately, one can attain association with the Lord. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurum Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Juta Padakamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tvam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakha Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhaktarupa Swarupakam Bhaktyavataram Bhaktakyam Namami Bhakta Shaktikam. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gauratushe Namaha. Nilachala Nivasaya Nityaya Paramatmane Balabhadra Subhadrabhyam Jagannathaya Te Namaha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute. Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priya. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So the text translation once again. Ei mata kare jeva raganuga bhakti Krishnera charane tara upajaya priti Priti ankure rati bhava hai duinam Jaha hoite vashahana Shri Bhagavan. If one engages in spontaneous loving service to the Lord, his affection for the lotus feet of Krishna gradually increases. In the seed of affection there is attachment, which goes by two names, Rati and Bhava. The Supreme Personality of Godhead comes under the control of such attachment. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. Before we delve further into the discussion, I would beg for the blessings and mercy of all the assembled Vaishnavas and senior devotees, so that I may be able to render this devotional service primarily for my own purification. So, very beautiful verse, and it very well also aligns with our Srimad Bhagavatam discussion, because right now in Srimad Bhagavatam we are discussing about the significance of the spiritual master, his role in our life, and also the role of the Paramatma in our life, and how Krishna, extending as the Paramatma, is our eternal best friend. And now here in Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita we have a discussion of how externally we are performing different items of devotional service, which are beginning from Shravanam and Kirtanam. And where do they end up? They end up at Krishna's lotus feet. And they eventually fructify as the spontaneous love for Krishna. And as a result of that, or it's both a cause and effect, that we attain the affection at the lotus feet of Krishna. And therefore, very beautifully it is mentioned here, Krishna actually comes under the control of such spontaneous feelings, and ultimately one can attain association with the Lord. So actually a very high goal, how we can bring the Lord under the control just by fully surrendering unto Him. So it's quite beautiful to see how if we fully attach ourselves to the Lord, as a reciprocation, the Lord feels obligated to us. It's very sweet actually. Because if you think the Lord who is Krishna, who is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, He's made all these technical things around in our world, beautiful flowers, also our ability to create buildings or whatever. And He's such a big shot. And just because we are attached to Him, He comes under our control. And then actually this reveals what a soft heart Krishna has. This reveals a very soft side of Krishna. Because sometimes, I think yesterday Harikatha Prabhu was mentioning that simply by performing austerity, the heart becomes very hard. And what is that kind of austerity? Austerity when we seek liberation, austerity where I am still in the center of such austerity. But if we perform austerity, and Srila Prabhupada says for a devotee of the Hare Krishna movement, what is austerity? Chanting 16 rounds, waking up for Mangala Arati, following the 4 regulative principles, and reading Srimad Bhagavad Gita every day. So these roughly 4 steps Prabhupada said is the austerity for a Hare Krishna devotee. And Prabhupada promised that simply if you execute this regularly with full faith and conviction, you will go back to Godhead. That's Prabhupada's promise, simply by doing these activities. And here also the beginning of the purport, it quotes even Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, our Param Guru, the spiritual master of Srila Prabhupada. And maybe I should also contextualize it a little bit for you. Could you remind me of your name again, please? Luca. Okay, so we have Luca here for the first time. Have you been to a Hare Krishna temple before? Okay, so we should contextualize. So this part of, for example, this, let's say, institution called ISKCON, we are also known as the Hare Krishna movement. And why are we known as the Hare Krishna movement?
Because we're chanting Hare Krishna.
Because we chant Hare Krishna. And as you may have experienced since the morning, we chant it a lot, you know. For everything we chant Hare Krishna. Even when we greet each other, we say Hare Krishna. So Hare Krishna is actually the name of God. And Hare means the pleasure potency or consort of God. And Krishna refers to God himself, a name of God, which also means all attractive. Therefore, Hare Krishna, when you chant, it's not a sectarian thing, you know, because you're chanting about the qualities of God and you're remembering God. So, in this Hare Krishna movement, our founder here, Srila Prabhupada, he originated from India in this life. And we believe that we also believe that although we may have certain nationality, certain color, certain gender, we are more than that. So this is just bodily designation. And we are the spirit souls, and this outer covering is our body. And our body is active because of a spiritual spark of consciousness which comes from the soul. And this is what our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada taught us. So at the age of 69, he suffered 2 heart attacks, but he crossed over oceans from India to the US in a ship called Jaladuta. And why did he take so much pain? To spread the word of God. And why did he have to spread the word of God? He could just be, because he was in a very nice hermitage and nicely chanting and meditating. But he did it because he felt responsible. And that is a reflection of a person who is very soft-hearted and compassionate. And compassion comes from the mercy of God, and when we connect to God. Because why? Like we were discussing, Krishna is so soft-hearted. So because God is soft-hearted, if we connect with him, we become soft-hearted. So Prabhupada preached this movement, and in the Hare Krishna movement, we have certain basic principles that we follow. For example, even if you take a job now, you have to follow certain principles. If you go to school, you follow certain principles. So that's just how this gives you a sense of commitment. You know, it brings some discipline to your life, gives you some direction. So it's a very nice thing. And what are the principles we follow? One is chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra. So of course, we are on different spiritual journeys. So some of us can chant 16 rounds, some can chant only 8, some can chant only 4. But the main point is to chant to the best of our ability. And especially those who are initiated in this movement, they chant at least 16 rounds. They commit themselves, you know. It's like a marriage, long-term relationship. You commit to the relationship. Yeah, it's really like that. And then the next thing is, Prabhupada also says, follow the 4 regulative principles. And in the cool lingo, it's also called the 4 eggs. Anybody knows what are the 4 eggs? Ramapriya.
Meat, fish, eggs.
No, let's just stick to no meat eating and fish, eggs, etc., etc. Okay, and?
No intoxication.
No intoxication. And? no gambling, and
no sexuality.
yes, no illicit
outside
sex.
yeah.
Yes, which means no sex life outside marriage and so on. So these are the 4 regulative principles that we are also a foundation of our practice here. So chanting, and then we also render something called devotional service, which means, I mean, doing something for somebody else is service, right? I think you know that, isn't it, Luca? Like, if you do something for the good of mankind, it's service. But why is it called devotional service? Because we move the center of attraction of our service not from ourselves and around us, but to a higher purpose, to God. And we do it out of love. Therefore, it is also easy when you develop a love to do service, it's also easy to transcend your bodily limitations sometimes. Because a person might totally think that it's crazy that we wake up at 3 o'clock or 3:30. But why do we do that? Out of love, to soften the heart. And the next thing is waking up for Mangala Arati. So I must congratulate you that it's your first time and you were here. And it's a nice ceremony, isn't it, in the morning? Yeah. And once somebody told me, actually it was Amoga Leela Prabhu, he's a preacher in India, also a Hare Krishna devotee. And he said that Mangala Arati is like going to God's bedroom when he's in pajamas. Because you saw the darshan was different now. Like what you saw now, it's called darshan. Darshan means both to see and be seen, So the way God saw you now, he was looking different. And the way, if you remember in the morning, he was looking different, isn't it? So he was wearing his pajamas early in the morning. So at night he put on his pajamas. And Amog Leela Prabhu in his lecture, he says how how many of us will let anybody and everybody into our bedroom while we are in pajamas? I mean, when we are in pajamas, we don't want to be seen by anybody, And but who do we let in? For example, here we have the ashram. Yeah, I mean, Prabhus and Mataji, we all hang out in pajamas, isn't it? At some point, yes, it's very natural. And we are okay with everybody seeing us? No, we actually get seen by only people who are close enough or who we approve can see us. So similarly, God allows us to see him in his pajamas in the morning. So imagine how intimate it is. So you can really develop a very close relationship through this morning practice. And therefore Prabhupada says it's imperative that we wake up in the morning, So that's the 3rd limb, he says, is very important. And the 4th limb, he says, is reading the Bhagavad Gita. Have you heard of the Bhagavad Gita? Anybody would like to describe what the Bhagavad Gita is to Luca in the most simple and understandable way? Anadi?
Bhagavad Gita is the science of God. And Krishna is speaking to one of his dear devotees about self-realization, basically about who are we, who is Krishna, and the relationship between them.
Very nice, yes. And this is taking place in between a battlefield, so it's very interesting. So a lot of tension and different emotions come out. So if you like, you can contact one of us and also grab a copy. We also have free copies if you just want to go through it. We have German and English both.
But yesterday you also took a book. It was the Bhagavad Gita which you were reading.
The one that you gave me some days ago.
Yes.
So you are reading. You have the Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah.
This is a sign you should start reading.
And do you speak English or more Italian? Or
In Italian, but
because you have also the Italian translation.
oh, okay.
Yeah, we can, maybe in the book lager we have the Italian translation. We can also give you an Italian one. It's very nice, when you have it, give it a try. So basically Prabhupada says these are the important aspects. And although it may seem so technical, but the beauty of it is that it makes the heart very soft. And as a reciprocation, when God sees, because there is this very nice example we can think of. Let's imagine that young boy is in love with a young girl. And the boy is trying very hard, to prove his love to her. And she's just like, no, now I don't want to have anything. I'm focusing on myself. So I don't want any distractions. And then this boy, but he really likes her, and he's thinking of long term, and he wants to get married to her, take care of her and everything. And then she sees how much he's endeavoring. Like he brings her flowers, and when she's sick, takes care of her, brings her nice presents, and in a very holistic way, takes care of her. What do you think? Over time, what will be the reaction of the girl? Her heart will soften, right? She will give in. So this is actually the side effect of service. I mean, a good side effect. So similarly, when in our relationship with Krishna, the thing is that we were discussing in Srimad Bhagavatam a few days ago that we are eternal living beings. We are the spirit soul. So our end and our beginning is not connected to the world, this world. So we live beyond this world. And we believe that there is a spiritual world above, and even the spiritual world is even bigger than heaven actually. It goes even beyond. And in the spiritual world, our original identity was like that. You see the picture at the back? There's Krishna, and there is his friend here, Gopakumar. So that was our identity. We were just friends with him, and he loved us, and we loved him. But at some point, we got a bit distracted, which is very, I feel, typical of at least me. And therefore, we wanted to enjoy separate from Krishna. And then Krishna said that, yeah, all right, if you want to, I will facilitate it. So he created the material world and he says, boom, go there, have fun. But the problem is that in the material world, the more we try to have fun, the more difficult it is. Why? Because Prabhupada gives this analogy of a camel, right? A camel, it has a habit of hanging out in the desert, and then, mostly that's what we see. And what does the camel do? And in deserts, what kind of plants do we have? Cactus, very intelligent. Yes, we have mostly just cactus or nothing. So the poor camel has the cactus around, and what does the camel do? Chews on the cactus. Anybody's chewed on the cactus here? Or do you know what happens if you chew on a cactus? You bleed, yeah, your tongue gets cut. And the camel, when it has the tongue cut and is chewing, Jai Shri Jagannath Baladev Subhadra Maharani ki Jai. Jai Shri Shri Gaur-Nitai ki Jai. Very beautiful darshan today, huh? This is our Sunday special darshan, Luca. That every Sunday we have a special darshan, more opulent, with flowers also. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki Jai. But the thing is, the camel, what it does is, chewing on the thorn, it has blood, and it thinks, oh wow, thorns are so tasty. Because it tastes blood and drinks the blood and thinks that thorn actually produce blood. Or produce something tasty, doesn't really know the human language to call it blood. So the example is that that's been similarly our experience in this world. That we are trying to enjoy, and Prabhupada always says that our version of happiness is the absence of suffering actually. When we don't suffer, we think, oh, we are happy. But is it really happiness? So that's the thing, that we are actually suffering so much in this material world. And at some point, through really reconnecting and rekindling our relation, or reawakening, as Satyananda Maharaj puts it, reawakening our relationship with God, we can go back to the spiritual world. And like any other relationship, this also needs investment, recognition. So our relationship with Krishna is very unique, and devotional service, or rendering service unto him, we tell him that, okay, I made a mistake. For example, a husband forgets the birthday of his wife. I say husband because Prabhupada's are popular for forgetting things. That's my gender bias, sorry. But then, like the husband forgets the birthday of the wife, and then he has to make up for it, right? And similarly, we have forgotten Krishna altogether. And we are here trying to be the Lord, It's like, you have the boss, but you're trying to kill your boss to be the boss, which is so cruel actually. And that's basically what we're doing, that we're trying to be God. Although we try very hard, we cannot be God. And then God's right there watching like, interesting. Now when we want to go back to the relationship again, then we have to really make up for it, in a way. And this making up is a process of purification of our existence. So this life that we have got, it's a very rare one, you know. It is said, Bahunam janma namante jnanavamam prapadyate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. So after millions and millions of births, this is in chapter 7 of the Bhagavad Gita, very famous verse, we get this chance to actually practice some devotion, you know, regardless of which religious institution you want to be from, but the practice of becoming God conscious is the most important. And we see that in this process of bhakti, us trying to endeavor and invest in our relationship to God or Krishna, it looks so attractive to him that he becomes captured. He says that, wow, I really mean so much to you and you're doing so much for me. He becomes under our control. So he is in control of such attachment. And of course, when we speak of Krishna becoming in control of of the devotee's attachment, can you think of any examples?
Draupadi.
Draupadi, very good example. And? The Brajavasis, Srimati Radharani. Yes, so Srimati Radharani was a consort of God. She's the best devotee. And imagine if she's the best devotee and does the best service, how much in control the Lord is of her. So, yeah, I mean, when I read this now, it just seems like a very sweet goal actually, but such a high goal. But of course, for a devotee never tries to bring God under his control. A devotee just, you be you, and God is attracted to the fact that you're just being you. So similarly, we have to develop the seed of affection. So you understand, like Krishna consciousness, we have to reawaken it in the heart. And also Madhya Leela, between chapter 19 to 22, there is a description that there is a seed of devotion in our heart. And that is either blossomed by the spiritual master or sown by the spiritual master. Depends on the perspective. But we water it with hearing and chanting, these two processes. And it is said that this seed then sprouts and eventually leads to the lotus feet of Krishna and bears its fruit there. So our goal is very sweet. And although Prabhupada says that things like waking up for Mangala Aarti, chanting 16 rounds, these are the austerities, but it's a very sweet austerity. It really softens the heart, provided we do it to attach ourselves to Krishna. So two words here are very significant, rati and bhava. Rati means affection or attachment, and bhava means emotions. So this process of Krishna consciousness actually is full of emotions, And there is, in the 1970s, there was this, I don't know, I think he was a sociologist, Paul Ekman, if I'm not wrong. He described 6 kinds of emotions that we go through. Anger, sadness, happiness, like that he classified emotions as 6 kinds of emotions. And sometimes, and this is something for maybe much more relevant for us devotees, or us trying to be devotees, and for some years we are trying to do our practice. So for us it may be relevant that sometimes in the practice of Krishna consciousness also, in our daily life, different kind of emotions come up, isn't it? And sometimes you know how to deal with it, and sometimes you don't know how to deal with it. Sometimes you feel guilty for having these emotions. So emotions in Krishna consciousness is a very sensitive topic, and perhaps something we should speak about a lot, because it's a very human topic. Because at the end of the day, yes, we are in this body, and what I find very beautiful is Krishna, and another name is Janardana, and he is called Bhavagrahi Janardana, which means Krishna is Bhavagrahi, which means he accepts our emotions. And of course we also know this famous verse from Bhagavad Gita, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhakta Prayachati Tad bhakti asnam uparitam. No, what is it? Patram pushpa phalam toyam yome bhakta pranashyati asnami prayatatmana upar. Anyway, see, that's the problem if you don't chant the verses regularly. So in that he says, if you offer devotional service unto me with love and affection. So in our process of Krishna consciousness, when we render devotional service, nothing is too big or nothing is too small. What really matters is the very seed of our intention, the very seed of love. And this love then fructifies because, for example, if you wanna, because Gokula is very expert in all these mechanical things and he does like building stuff. If you wanna, put a nail into a wall, what do you need to do? You choose a spot first, then you put the nail, and then you keep hammering. You keep hammering it for long until it's really there. So that's really also our practice of Krishna consciousness, of rendering service. That in the beginning, we just need to figure out what is our service that really resonates with us. And we have to start doing the service. And in the beginning, when you hammer, Gokula can definitely affirm. In the beginning, to get the nail through the wall is difficult, isn't it? So you have to really hammer hard. So when you recognize or you find a service which you really feel, this is my relationship with Krishna, this is my service to Krishna, it resonates with me, and then you start to hammer the nail. And in the beginning, it's difficult. And in the beginning, waking up for Mangala Arati is also difficult. So sadhana as such is difficult in the beginning. The more you keep at it, what happens? Ramapriya? What happens if you keep it? Doing it, the same thing again and again? It becomes easier, yes. So once the nail is halfway through, then it's just like one boom and it's done. So that's really that's the reason why we practice service, to hammer the nail in the wall actually in a way. But at the same time, we also have to understand, because sometimes I think humans have this need of perfection. I mean, I certainly have this, that everything has to be perfect. I have to perfectly find this is what I have to do with my life and this is my service and so on. But we have our plan, but God has His plans, The more we want to plan, the more God takes us away from our plan. It's a very humbling experience actually, to just live under God consciousness. So sometimes when we are, for example, I saw Gokula do this many times, that when he's choosing a nail, he has to choose the right nail. He will choose one nail, but then he's like, nah, the wall is not perfect for it. Then he goes for another nail. And then he's like, no. And sometimes instead of the hammer, you have to even drill it in, So that's the thing, even if we say that you have to hammer the nail, this nail being service and our attitude of service, it will take time. We cannot just think we'll find the perfect nail according to the perfect wall, because we don't know what's the wall made of. Because we don't know that, because of course in Krishna consciousness we also believe in reincarnation. So we don't know what we are really carrying with us, and sometimes at least I can say I don't even know my own self. So it's really a journey of self-discovery. So even when we want to select some service, it can be about changing, okay, which nail I do. Maybe this nail not, maybe this is too big, this is too small. And then finally, we use our intelligence to use the nail, but in this process of Krishna consciousness, we also use our prayers, helplessness to choose the nail. And then the nail at sometimes becomes revealed to us. Either, for example, if I today decide that I want to hammer a nail and I'm really new at it, and then Gokula comes, he's an expert, and he says, Devasri, how stupid, you have to use this nail. So somebody will come, that's the spiritual master, he comes and he tells you that this is your service, this is how you have to go about it. Or, so you have the spiritual master, and sometimes, for example, if I'm nailing something in the Mataji ashram and I'm just sleepless and tired and I'm not able to do it, and then Anadi and Ramapriya, they're like, Devasri, you go sleep, I will do it. So it's really about, the help that we get from devotees around us. So that's why we live in communities and association of devotees. And also it's a cause of mercy. And it can also be that I look at a nail and I have a strong feeling, this is the nail. And I hit it and yes, this is the nail. So in Krishna consciousness, these three aspects are very important. Mercy of God, the support and mercy of devotees, and also the shelter of the spiritual master. And this way, if we keep hammering the nail, one day we will be hanging the picture of Krishna embracing us on the wall. Like it's here. So like it's here. So this is, the samam bonum. This is rati and bhava, attachment and emotions in Krishna consciousness. So please take the Krishna consciousness movement very seriously and feel deeply. It's not a superficial process. I remember a few months ago, Mother Rukmini was here, a very senior disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And I remember before she left, she looked at me and she says, and she's very sweet, as a person, and very and she looked at me and she was very serious and she said, Devasri Radhika, don't stay on the surface, go deep. And then she sat in the car and drove away. And it's quite an impactful thing, Let's not stay on the surface and let's go deep. And I would even request you, Luca, that the fact that you are here, it means something in life, So, and I can already see you are a very receptive person. So let's not stay on the surface, let's really go deep. And the thing is, one thing we have to know about Krishna, that he's looking, he's looking at what we are giving, but he's also looking at what we are withholding. And just this morning I had a realization about something which I have a tendency for and I withhold. And then I was on the altar and I was thinking, wow, actually I have to let go of this. So we have to really introspect as devotees, and the more we clean our heart, the more we simplify our hearts, untie the knots of our heart, the more we will be able to develop love. And this love will lead to attachment. And naturally, Krishna will feel, that's not our goal, to bring God under control. But he's so soft-hearted that he will. And because he's so soft-hearted, it makes our love even more stronger, Because, for example, if you have friends who, really they stay by you and they really love you, then you love them back even more, So that's our relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So I guess with that we can come to an end or conclusion that to be together with Krishna, we have to develop love, and this love comes from attachment. And attachment comes from hammering the nail on the wall, which is devotional service. Okay, Grataraj Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gaur Premanandi, Hari Hari Bol. So any questions or comments, or anybody would like to share something? Yes, go.
In the verse it mentioned attachment to Krishna is rati and bhava. So what's the difference between rati and bhava? Or is it exactly the same?
Yeah. See, that's what happens when you're attentive. Because he was listening. So the thing is that here it is mentioned how the seed of affection leads to attachment. And this attachment can be known as rati and bhava both. Now, the term itself, rati, means affection or attachment, and bhava means emotion. But at the same time, if you look at the effect of these feelings on a person, they are kind of interchangeable. Because if you develop, this loving emotions towards Krishna, that is a symptom that you are attached to him. And if you are attached to him, or if you have affection for him, you naturally have these emotions. So that is why it says, which goes by two names, rati and bhava. And also if I look at the word by word translation, rati here is, the transliteration is attachment, and bhava is emotions. So the word as such means attachment and emotions, but Prabhupada's purport, that's the potency of Prabhupada's purport, that he takes us even a step further. Because if you have attachment, you have emotions, and if you have emotions, that's a symptom that you have attachments. So I don't know if that clarifies.
Yes, and there's also in the Guru Puja song, Si Guru Charane Rati, that we get attachment to the lotus feet of the Guru.
Yeah, and attachment actually is such an important subject matter, because because as devotees we go through this guilt trip and we realize, oh, we are so attached still to our anarthas, to this material world, to our tendencies. And it can be quite discouraging, and all we have to actually do, sounds simple, but maybe it's not so simple, actually focus our light to actually developing attachment to Krishna. And I really like this example of how you have a cup of water, muddy water, and what do you have to do? You just have to keep pouring clean water, because you may not be able to throw the whole water out. All you do, if you keep pouring clean water, look at what is the effect? If there is a cup of muddy water, and if you keep pouring clean water for some while, what happens? The muddy water is out and it's just clean water in the end, right? So if you have this cup, and I don't want to do it here because it'll be a mess, but if you just pour clean water, eventually all the mud goes out and then you eventually just have clean water. So that's also our practice of God consciousness, that we may have all these attachments, but we just have to keep pouring the water and becoming more and more attached. Actually, every day we should consciously think of what things I can do to become more attached to Krishna. And the side effect will be detachment and renunciation. So that's that. Any other question or comments? Yes, Anadi Gurangi.
I have 2 questions.
Yes, please.
You mentioned that Krishna accepts our emotions, all our emotions. So does he accept really all emotions, also the negative ones?
Mm-hmm. Nice question. So the thing is, Prabhupada says that human conditioning is to think in duality, the good and the bad, And also so many philosophers. The other day I asked Mahakrishna Prabhu and I forgot. There was this philosopher also who was it? Anyway, I forgot. A lot of, in the Western philosophy, a lot of people talk about this. Was it Foucault? I think even Foucault mentions this, that to understand the legal, you have to understand the illegal. The problem is we think in binaries, good and bad. And therefore, even if we are feeling something, we think in binaries, this is good and this is bad. But Krishna doesn't think in dualities, Krishna, maybe it's too flamboyant to say this, but Krishna actually accepts us as we are. Because that's what friends do. And he's our eternal best friend. He's our ever well-wisher. So he actually accepts us the way we are, the version we are. And when we experience these kind of emotions, for example, a young mother has this very small child. And the child is happy, and then at some point the child cries. Does the mother think, of course, at some time she would get frustrated so she can think. But for the mother, both the child laughing and crying is important. Why? Because she looks at the reason. If the child has eaten nicely, she's like, okay, the child has eaten nicely, and therefore laughing. And if the child cries, oh, let's check the diapers. So something like that, that when we are feeling these things, we might think, oh, it's a good feeling, it's a bad feeling. But Krishna is more interested in why we are feeling it. He goes to the reason, And as the Paramatma, because he's the witness in the heart, right? We remember 2 birds on a tree. If we are feeling something, what we call so-called negative, and we also offer this to Krishna asking him for help, then he helps us. Because the thing is, if it's a struggle for us, then we will think it's a bad thing for us. And then Krishna will be like, okay, if it's a struggle for you, I help you. And mostly for us, it's a struggle when it's an impediment in devotional service, when it's an impediment in purity. And purity is very important. And in a way, for a devotee, introspection is important, that we see things as good and bad, but we don't become attached to just the good things and not the bad things, because both will always be there. And Prabhupada says that Krishna consciousness has no end to perfection, So, it may be too daring to say this, but sometimes when you read the offerings of our spiritual masters to Prabhupada, they talk about so much contamination they have. If you look at the poems of Bhakti Vinod Thakur, like Bhakti Vinod Thakur, our Acharya, he expresses so much contamination. So this feeling of feeling low and feeling fallen and not worthy, if used properly, can be a beautiful feeling, and feeling, in a way, you could say it's a negative emotion, but our acharyas prove actually it's not negative emotion, because if you see this lamentation, this fallen, downtrodden condition that they have, it makes them even more Krishna conscious. So it's actually, they don't see it as negative, you know. So, yeah, Krishna in a way, he accepts everything. He accepts all of us if we offer it unto him. He's like this, once I saw this biblical drama, Lighthouse, you know. It was based on this, what is this band? Lighthouse. You know this song, Lighthouse? It's from a very famous band. I haven't heard these songs for many years, so I don't know. But then there was a biblical drama around it, where it's, maybe I will share it with some of you, but it's like so powerful, you know. God was dragging the soul, and the soul was distracted. Like, there was God and this girl, and she's distracted by different friends and alcohol and everything. And eventually when she falls down, and these things are pulling her towards, you know, in her broken condition, pulling her towards them, God tries to pull her towards him. And it gives you goosebumps, you know, the way the drama is performed. Maybe we can also do it here sometime. So that's our relationship, you know, that if we just turn towards God, he's very much willing to just pull us in. And if we offer all that we have, actually Bhaktivinoda Thakur says, Manasa deha geho jo kichu mor, arpilo tua pade nanda kisho, whatever I have, you know, like, in a way, actually, we should go to Krishna totally naked, you know, in mind and soul and heart. That's the best. Because anyway, he knows. He anyway knows. And when we become so vulnerable to Krishna, imagine how compassionate he becomes. So the short answer to your question is yes. He accepts all of you the way you are. And if you feel like, because you want to love him more, you have to change something in yourself, a certain emotion, then you can pray to him that for you I want to change. And then he helps. I don't know if that was helpful.
Yes.
Okay. And your second question?
Yes, also about emotions, because you said sometimes we want to avoid certain emotions and then we suppress them, but maybe you have some advice how to...
I'm a bad person to give advice on this. Because, you know, like a few months ago I did a lot of this... really going deep and doing some personality work, and I realized when it comes to emotions, I'm an avoidant. There are different styles we express emotions, you know, also how we bond with people. Attachment styles are there, and you can be anxiously attached, you can be anxious, you can be avoidant type or whatever. And so there are many layers. I mean, anyway, these are these terminologies, and so it's very complicated. And sometimes now this therapy world is growing, so sometimes it's too much also sometimes. So we have to wisely read about these things. But like you said that, what was your question again, if you can repeat it?
Sometimes there's...
Some emotions avoid, yes. Yeah. So, of course, I mean, you just generally want to address this point that we... Now the thing is, generally it is said that if you keep filling something, you know, let's imagine there is a jar and we keep filling it and then we try to bottle it, you know. Oh, once I had this experience that, let me tell you this story. So once Krishna Kshetra Maharaj was here, and he was traveling from somewhere, and one devotee had packed some hummus for him, and it was really full and in a glass jar. And it was like really full, and it did the whole journey, and it was stayed overnight, so it was not in the best shape inside, you know, it was rotten. And then some devotee brought the jar to me, and I was like, oh, what's this? And just opened the jar and boom. This whole thing just kind of blew up. It was all on the walls and everything everywhere. Yeah. So that's also if we suppress emotions, you know. We bring it to the full and then we put a cap on it and then it begins to rot, and at some point, boom. It explodes and creates dirt everywhere. So that's something we have to be careful not to create dirt everywhere like that, because that's much more difficult to clean, you know. Because at some point we have to clean it. So it becomes more difficult to clean. So suppression, is not so healthy. What we need to do, we have to move from suppression to processing, actually. Because the very fact that we have these emotions is also a symptom of life and our conditioning, both, you know. We are because we feel, and at the same time we are conditioned in certain way because of our lifetime, because of our inner desires, because of the family we come from, because of our society surrounding. So it's very natural to have different kinds of emotions, some of which we don't like. And if we suppress them, there is a very good chance that such suppression can lead to bewilderment and then anger and so on. And at the same time, if you think of this example, it can also lead to an explosion. And you know, it's been like that in our movement, no? That there have been certain kinds of suppressions which were not healthy, and then they came out in very ugly ways. So, as such, suppression is not so healthy, but at the same time, I think it's also what your personality is like, I think. Because we also have to be, you know, these things, okay, emotions generally, it's a general topic, but it's also a very individual topic. Because all of us connect and process emotions very differently. So when you feel like there is something you are trying to avoid, I would always suggest writing it down, journaling. And of course, it's also nice if you have some, let's say, counselors. That's why counselors are very important. Or I would even not say good friends, because if there are emotions that you are suppressing, it means it's something serious, hopefully. So it's always nice to go to a counselor and process it. And if you're not able to do that and you still feel you want to work on it a little bit, then you should write it down, journal. Like His Holiness Swayam Bhagavan Keshav Maharaj really also stresses a lot on journaling. And last point is something I heard from His Holiness Krishna Chaitanya Maharaj, because there was a phase of my life where I was going through some difficulties and it was really troubling me. And then he suggested something which he called the Shanti method. So what you do is that you have to really visualize this, and if you visualize it nicely, you can even process it. It's like really a self-processing of emotions. So you imagine a glass box, and you take this emotion, whatever you're feeling, you put it inside the glass box. And then you imagine that you are walking around this glass box and view your emotions. What are you feeling? Why are you feeling it? How are you feeling it? So just feel what you're feeling. And then you ask yourself, can I let go? And the answer does not always have to be yes. That's the most comforting part. If it's a yes, then you just tell yourself, I let go and it's done. And sometimes you might have to do this again and again for some emotions. But if the answer is no, that's also okay. You know, okay, I'm not able to let go of this emotion. I'm not. Okay, so what's the next step? Maybe sometimes you just want to stay with it, but come back to it at some point, you know. So these are some practical mechanisms also, how we can deal with it. But does that help? Or, okay. Thank you, Anadi. All right, I think we are way over time, and I don't want to take advantage of the fact that our temple president is not physically present here. So I will end here. Thank you very much for such a lively discussion on Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Grantaraj Shri Chaitanya Charitamrita ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Gaur Premanandi.